Romance is in the air for Valentine's Day. And when you're ready to pop the question, all you need is the perfect moment to come around. And, of course, the ring. At BlueNile.com, you can find thousands of natural and lab-grown diamonds, plus legendary service from Blue Nile's jewelry experts who can answer every question, help you design a custom ring, and even plan the proposal. So seize the day today. Right now, you can save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Chicago. What do you say? Cubs gonna win today.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. It must be spring because we're talking baseball with MLB writer David Brown. Dave, how are you?
Andy, I'm fine. If I were like being polite and lying, I'd say I'm fine, but technically I have pneumonia.
Pneumonia. That's right.
Yes.
Are you on the injured list?
I would say yeah, but I'm not too injured to talk to you.
If you were a Cub, they would make you play through it.
That's true. If I were on the Mets, they'd give me a concussion and then put me on an airplane on purpose.
What are the odds his brain will explode? They're not 0, but it's not 100. All right, get on the plane. I want to make a confession. I did not vote for Ichiro for the Hall of Fame.
It was you.
For the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I thought his early stuff was too derivative of Kenny Loggins. So
well, you know how, if I can stereotype here for a second, the Japanese love like 50s rock and roll for some reason. So, and he does have a buzz cut, or did at one time. So he was kind of like, just add a little brill or whatever, pomade or whatever that was.
Did you know he was born the day Buddy Holly died? So he very likely is Buddy Holly. I don't think the math works on that, but don't check it.
All right. I'm not going to check the levy either to see its condition.
That's right. That's your second time voting for the Hall of Fame?
It is.
Is it worth it? Is it worth the hassle?
It's a good question.
I mean, it's an honor, I guess.
It is. It's an honor. It's a big responsibility. I've always wanted to. I'm one of these people who thinks that they know better than everyone else on subjects like this. I feel like they should just let me pick the Hall of Famers, and I'd do the best job of anybody. Seriously, I some of these people who like have credentials like better than mine or should, or they vote, and I just don't understand where they're coming from. But I also allow for the fact that I just could be bleeping, in outer space and wrong on things. So, but it's a big deal to me, and there's so many other factors though going on right now. Like, should you vote for people because of steroids? Should you not vote for people because of domestic violence or whatever Kurt Schilling's category is? That isn't
fraud.
So much fun. Fraud.
Journalism.
Let's hang all the journalists. That's my least favorite thing, because fraud is not good, but so there's all that. That stuff makes it kind of adds a little bit of stress to it, but it's not. I love. It's amazing that I have the opportunity. It's a pleasure just to be nominated as someone who reviews the nominated.
Well, see, I like the people like you have a vote because you still actively pay attention to baseball. You give this a lot of thought. And then I see that people like David Hull and Rick Tellender have Hall of Fame votes. And it's like, what the fuck are we doing? Why did the two football writers ever get? They were general columnists, and that's how they got their baseball Hall of Fame vote. It's like, well, they shouldn't have had it when they were actively doing it, and now they're not. So please take it away, because we just don't need. I don't care who they think should go in.
Yeah, well, unless, and that's like people say, well, the players, the people in the Hall of Fame should, and this all could be true. And there's this other thing. The New York Times doesn't let and they might not be the only outlet, doesn't let its reporters, who are baseball reporters, vote for the Hall of Fame. Because they don't want the reporters to be the ones making the news and to be in a position of, to be compromised or whatever, or to compromise the news. And I think that is actually, I could live with that as a baseball fan if that, as a voter, if they took it away from me tomorrow for that reason, I could see that. But I don't know. Whoever should vote for the Hall of Fame really is like, if it's a writer or a player or an announcer or whatever, you run into problems where because writers aren't the only, everyone's biased in their own way. Yep. The writers have their biases. Well, Curt Schilling was a jerk to me.
Yep.
Or the players have their biases. Curt Schilling was a jerk to me. Or you played for the wrong team or whatever. You just have to pay attention to what happened and read statistics and do your homework. And it's like, that's sort of why it's a good thing for journalists to be, because you'd think that journalists would be in the habit of doing that. But, just giving it to like the Joe Morgan, would you like the Joe Morgans of the world to control who's in the Hall of Fame?
That's how the Veterans Committee, that's what the Veterans Committee was, and they wouldn't vote anybody in. They decided that nobody was as good as us. Yeah, except their old buddies were the only ones they would vote.
Right. The Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame's too watered down. Well, the writers didn't do that. Yep. Really. The people that watered down the Hall of Fame really were the first players on the Veterans Committee who voted in their cronies in the 40s. So that's why there's all sorts of people in the Hall of Fame who don't belong. It's mostly because of those guys, because of ex-players. So I don't trust them either.
Now I know one, I think the other. Like the two most egregious, like the White Sox had for the longest time the worst player in the Hall of Fame, and then they replaced him with another. It went from Nellie Fox to Harold Baines. And Harold,
I think Ray Schock was probably worse than Nellie Fox, but
okay. My White Sox bias always pushed Nellie.
Yeah, Andy. But
plus, that's a weird name for a man, Nellie.
Nellie. Well, he made up for it by chewing way too much tobacco and dying.
That's true.
So,
well, Harold doesn't have the good sense, doesn't have the courtesy to do that. He's still around.
It didn't seem like Dave Parker just got elected by the Veterans Committee. It didn't seem Dave Parker seems more like a Hall of Famer to me than Harold. But if you look at their stats, they're actually pretty similar. Parker's kind of down there with Harold as far as WAR goes and stuff. But but it's Harold is certainly one of the more recently bad, well, not bad, but not worthy Hall of Fame guys, which is too bad. It was my mom's favorite player. But,
The outrage over Ichiro not being unanimous. I mean, he obviously should have been unanimous. I can't care because Greg Maddux wasn't unanimous.
Yes.
So now I don't ever care if anybody's ever unanimous. I mean,
I think
I don't know who the guy was who didn't vote for Greg Maddux. There's a lot of guys that didn't. Who wasn't Joe DiMaggio not a first ballot Hall of Famer? There's
Maybe. I'm not really.
There's some ridiculous example of an all-time great who didn't even go in the first time.
Isn't Cy Young? Was Cy Young in the first class, or was he in the second? I don't know. But yeah, stuff. There's lots of examples of stuff like that. And of course, when you're starting the Hall of Fame, it's like, well, there is going to be a backlog unless you want 30 guys in the first, ceremony. The thing, not being 100%, I don't know the person's reasoning, but I know there's like one good reason to not vote for someone like Ichiro. It's that, if you see how we can see now in the last few years how guys are tracking before a vote is announced. A guy named Ryan Thibodeau started a ballot tracker.
Yeah.
And I think like 50% or so, maybe not quite, of the votes were in and public before the announcement was made. You could see how it was going, that Ichiro, everyone had voted for Ichiro.
Yeah.
And statistically speaking, he was going to get in.
Yeah.
So if you have a ballot, if you want to vote for 12 people instead of the 10 that you're allowed, maybe you don't vote for Ichiro.
Right.
You vote for somebody else to keep their candidacy going because Ichiro's going to get in. That's like the reason to not vote for him.
Yes.
I don't know if that's what this guy did, though.
No, we don't know. Won't say. They won't say who they are. Cy Young, second year on the ballot.
Yeah, Cy Young, second year on the ballot.
Tris Speaker, second year on the ballot. Rogers Hornsby, fifth year on the ballot.
I think nobody liked him. I think that's why that was.
Jimmy Fox, seventh year on the ballot. Joe DiMaggio, fourth year on the ballot. Hank Greenberg, and then it's sad. I think we can guess why. Maybe Hank didn't get ninth year on the. He almost made it. He was you can only be on for 10, right?
Now it used to be 15. I think it was 15 in those days.
Yogi was his second year. Harmon Killebrew was a fourth, and then we get to more recent ones that are, but like, Harry Carey's favorite player, Napoleon Lajoie, second year.
And Mr. Burns. It's Mr. Burns' favorite player as well.
Let's see. Whitey Ford, second year. Grover Cleveland Alexander, third year. Anyway. It's just odd.
He should have been voted in twice, like Grover Cleveland, the pitcher. Or the
president. Or maybe 3 times, Ronald Reagan. Or he thought he played a president in a movie, but he played
did.
Grover Cleveland Alexander.
Right.
That's great. No dementia there.
Maybe Trump will be a 3-term president too.
Oh, we can only hope. So I get a kick out of the outrage Cub fans especially have against the Dodgers. Dodgers are ruining baseball. They're signing everyone. And last week, little Brett Taylor from Bleacher Nation. I got his the guy who pushed him over the edge was Kirby Yates. That was the one. That's what finally did it for Bert.
Right.
Was Kirby. Oh my God. What are they don't need Kirby Yates. Now they're just signing Kirby Yates. It's like, all right. I mean, the Dodgers aren't doing anything that a whole number of owners, including the family that owns the Cubs, could not do. They all could do it. They just don't. And so I can't get mad when just because the owners of my favorite team just refuse to do it. Not that they can't do it.
The only if you switch this scenario around a little bit, I could see Dodgers fans getting upset at their team for not getting Kirby Yates when they could, because they didn't want to pay a luxury tax or whatever. So, I mean, there is room somewhere in this discussion for fans to be upset at their own team for not spending, but it's not. And if you remember the Dodgers last year, they went through about 34 pitchers.
Yes,
and
that's exactly why they're doing this.
I don't know if that's because of abuse or it was coincidence or what, but I think they still have some holes. There's no. I don't think there's like, the Dodgers are going to repeat. I mean, we thought they would have won 3 or 4 by now, and they haven't. So
they still don't have a shortstop.
No,
they just refused to get one.
It's weird how many holes they have, actually.
Yeah. Well, that's all right. They're saving an outfield spot for Kyle Tucker for next year, so that'll be fun for Cub fan. And then all the evil deferred money. Oh, they're deferring all this money, and they're just. Why doesn't every team do it? Like if you, here's part of the problem is you have to convince the player to do it. So in most cases, other than Shohei, who just decided, you know what, I make so much money off the field. I want to make a lot of money as a baseball player, but I also want the team I go to have money to spend on other good players. And we figured out a really fun way for me to not pay California state taxes on this because I won't get paid most of this money till I'm back living in Japan. But other guys, other teams couldn't sell them on it because it's like, well, no, I don't want to come play for you for this. I'll do that for the Dodgers because they're the Dodgers. I'll go win a World Series.
Guardians?
And so like Tanner Scott, with his deferral, supposedly the offer the Cubs gave him would have given him more present day money than the Dodgers. But he picked the Dodgers because they're the Dodgers. Right. Like, he wants to go pitch in the World Series. Yeah, it'd be fun to play for the Cubs. It looks like a fun place to play. But it's the Cubs' own fault that they can't get a guy like that. They are not seen as ambitious as the Dodgers. And so you're like, oh, that's a better place to go. I'll just go play there. So that's a part of it too, right?
And it's, I read it as teams like the Cubs aren't willing to pay 5% more or 10% more than they'd like to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what free agency is. There's a premium involved. It's been 50 years almost since free agency started. You don't, it's not all about getting the best value in every deal. Yep. Sometimes you have to overpay a little bit. And if you get a guy and you pay him a little too much money, quote unquote, but let's say you win a division or a World Series or get to it, and he helps you do that, or he makes an all-star team, then the whole deal is worth it. So you're worried about what you're paying him 4 years from now. Well, maybe you've accomplished a few things by then that make it all worth it. That's how you should think when you're running a team. You shouldn't think, what is the best deal? It's not a computer game. No. You want to win the games. I mean, that you play.
As a team, you pay extra for free agents because you're getting a player who was not available to you in any other way.
Yeah.
He was on another team, and now he's out for the open market to bid on, and you're going to pay a premium to get a good one.
And that's
so just accept the fact that you're going to do it.
The Dodgers, their real strength, other than being able to offer contracts or whatever to free agents, is player development, where they put a lot of capital into developing their own minor league players who they can basically abuse for years and pay nothing to and get something out of. Yep. And, that's where you make your hay. You don't, it's like they think we don't know this. I guess some fans act like they don't, but
no, the fact that there are fans who get mad at players for getting too much money. There are fans now who are like, well, I think a salary cap does seem like a good idea. It's like, well, no, just your owner could succeed under the current rules. He or she just decides that, nah, I can make more money doing it this way than that way. And that's what I'm going to do.
Every once in a while, I try and think about or read about people's ideas for how to fix the economic system or whatever, improve it or make it more of an even playing field, kind of like the NFL. And then I think about like how, to a certain extent that's happened in the NFL, but then you have like the Chiefs, who win the Super Bowl every year. I know they're a small market team, but like you don't have anybody in baseball winning every year. It's you tend to make the playoffs when you spend more, and people act like that's a bad thing. That's true, but there's as much parity in baseball as I think anybody could expect, and it exists. It's there. There are opportunities.
Well, I was going to say, if you're a Cub fan who thinks, well, a salary cap is going to solve all of our problems, chances are you're a Bears fan. How is the salary cap? Look at all the Super Bowl trophies the Bears have had since the salary cap came in. Look at all, and you might be a Bulls fan. That the NBA has a salary cap. Oh, that's right. I forgot all those titles that the Bulls have won in this century. A good owner is going to figure out a way to win if there's. And honestly, it should be easier to win without those restrictions. So why do you want them? Because you think this illusion of fairness.
The basic premise of this, which includes the owners get to keep more money.
Yeah.
Why would anybody like that?
Yeah.
Who wants to make, David Rubenstein richer? Why is that a plus? And his general manager is just sitting there. I mean, they did sign a couple of guys. They signed Tyler O'Neill, and they just signed Dylan Carlson. I don't know what kind of needle that moves. But
well, they don't. What they are lacking, obviously, are young outfielders. They don't have any of those.
Right.
So let's get one that we know is worse than the guys we already have, and let's give at bats to him. That seems like a great idea.
I don't know why they're messing around with him. It's still worth it to see if Dylan Carlson can play. It's looking like he can't, but he could hit lefties a few years ago, and he seems like an overrated Cardinal. But some team, should be interested in him. I don't know why the Orioles think it should be them, but
I don't either. So the luxury tax is playing into another thing that it tangentially involves the Cubs. Mostly involves, I think, the Tigers and the Astros and the Red Sox, and that's Alex Bregman. The Bob Nightingale is convinced that the Ryan Presley trade to the Cubs was made to clear money so that the Astros could bring Alex back and stay under the luxury tax. But they wouldn't be able to pay him very much. They saved $8.5 million on the Presley thing. They already traded Kyle Tucker to try to get under the luxury tax. They did not clear a lot of room, so I don't know that is true. And even if they do, then their plan apparently is Bregman would go back to third. Isaac Paredes would play second base, and Jose Altuve would play left field. That really seems like you've made second base and left field really bad.
Right.
I mean, Paredes is basically a square. He's like a Minecraft character waddling around on a baseball field. He's barely functional at third. I don't think why would you put him in a place where he actually needed to show off his range? I know he's played all these positions, with the Rays. He played first, and he played second, and he played third, but I don't know that he played any of them well. So the fit doesn't even make any sense to me. But then there's this idea, and I think it's a good one, that if Bregman is stuck having to do one of the Boris special pillow contracts, that the Cubs would be a pretty attractive place for him and for them, given that they could do kind of a Cody Bellinger 1.0 kind of contract with him where he gets a decent amount of money this year, and then he gets some security in case he gets hurt or he sucks. He could stay for another year, right, or he could go be a free agent again. And the Cubs are trying to break in a guy who we think is a really good prospect, Matt Shaw, but he's a prospect, so God knows. And he would basically be a utility infielder for a year, filling in at second and third, getting at bats, learning from... It's funny, when you look at Bregman and him, they basically have the same swing, they have the same leg kick, they have everything. It's like, Jesus, this would be like a perfect situation for... They're both short. It cracked me up. I looked up how that they list Bregman at 6 foot.
No way.
That's doing a lot of rounding up to get to 6 foot.
5'10".
Yeah. And Shaw's 5'9", which makes me wonder if he's really 5'7", because he lists himself at 5'9". But I think he's actually...
It's always a healthy thing to cut off 2 inches on your height, I mean.
But then there's they can't do that because there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, they would go over the luxury tax. They have to pay the luxury tax. They went over it last year, and it was this. Now it would cost them a 2nd and 5th round draft picks. Okay, that's good. So instead of signing a really good player to a sweet deal for you, it's a short deal. There's very little risk, right? And getting a good player for at least a year, when you're supposedly trying to contend, you went out and you made the big trade to get the right fielder who you might not have for more than a year.
Right.
Let's keep that 2nd and 5th round draft picks. Those are so important. I went back and looked. I wrote it in the newsletter this week. I looked at all their 2nd and 5th round picks since 2018. None of them have ever played in the big leagues. You have to go back to 2014 to find one who did. So a decade of terrible 2nd and 5th round picks, and it's Justin Steele. So, hey, that was pretty good. So one out of those 20 picks, that turned out great.
11 years ago.
So we can't give those picks up for this. That would be terrible.
Right.
There's a lot with the Cubs that and I don't understand. Getting Kyle Tucker is great. Anytime you can get a great player, get a great player. That's wonderful. But if the plan, they won't say out loud that their plan is to offer him a bunch of money to keep him. And if that's not the plan, then you haven't done anything else really to make your team better. So what are we doing in this 1 year with Kyle Tucker? He's going to be good. It's going to make the Cubs marginally better. They're probably going to miss the playoffs, or they're going to get in for 2 days and go home. I don't understand it. That felt to me like that was a, hey, we're going to go for it move, and then they stopped right then. I don't understand.
I like the John Birdie acquisition. Good for the bench. He is. Probably. Aging speedster. Mustachioed speedster.
I think I found my new favorite stat when I was looking it up. John Birdie, 3 years ago, led the National League in stolen bases with 41.
Right.
He scored 47 runs.
Well, it was with the Marlins.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, oh, those were obviously some pretty clutch stolen bases.
Right. Oh, fantasy.
I know. I'm sure he got stranded at second and third a lot.
Right.
But still, it was like, oh, God. I did not expect a guy with 41 stolen bases to only score 6 more runs than he had stolen bases. It would have been even better if he had fewer. That's what I was hoping for. Right. 41 steals and 38 runs. That would have been even better.
Yeah, that's sort of like a different version of Ozzie Guillen or Sean Dunstan's on-base percentage being lower than their batting average.
It had been their batting average. The Cubs also, they got Gage Workman from the Tigers in the Rule 5 draft. He spent 3 years at Double-A, where in 3 years, he has, I believe, 40 more total bases than strikeouts.
Wow.
That doesn't seem good either. Over 400 of both. That's not great. And then they got Vidal Brujan. So that's the bench. Go get him, Craig. You got Gage Workman, Vidal Brujan, and John Birdie. Will he even have the mustache? Or was that just a Yankee thing? Did he grow up because they won't let me grow a beard? But every Yankee should have a porn mustache. So I'm going to go for it.
Yeah, it's like, are you Austin Wells or are you John Birdie? I can't tell. Or are you Mario?
I think they signed Birdie because they watched the playoffs and Costas went over the moon at how well he was playing first base.
He'd never played it before.
It's like he's an infielder.
Right.
They can all play first base, Bob. It's not hard. It's incredibly hard. No, it's not. That was a line from Moneyball. That doesn't make it true. So there's that, which is a lot of fun. The Athletic ran a 10-year retrospective of everybody's favorite, as Bruce Levine likes to call him, Tobe Manfred. This is great when the tweet has both names spelled wrong. It was great. Tobe Manfred, but you might know him as Rob Manfred. And what his legacy is in 10 years, to me, the legacy is the pitch clock and a bunch of bad shit.
Yeah, certainly questionable or too early to tell, maybe, to be charitable in some cases. And, kind of and we'll see about, labor relations. It's been good for now, but it seems like we're coming toward we talked about salary cap and that kind of thing. If the owners really want to go for one of those, is Manfred going to steer them that way? And I don't think that would be good in terms of labor issues. And I don't know. I think the pitch clock has been good for making the game shorter, and maybe they've kind of leaned into that whole thing too much because they have a bunch of other rules that are, the pitching changes and you got to face 3 guys and all kinds of other things that are supposed to shorten the game that I don't know that we need anymore. I still will see how pitcher injuries unfold in the future with, having to throw and not take more time. There's the jury's out a little bit. And his record on minority hiring, as far as I know, is bad.
Certainly
compared to the previous commissioner, who made it a point to let's make sure we have representation with managers and coaches and front office. And I don't think they're as good as they were or could be with that. So that's what I think.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
The pitch clock thing has made games more, I don't want to say it's made games more watchable, but it is nice to have, it cracks me up. People would complain forever about the length of baseball games, but on Saturdays, ESPN schedules college football games 3.5 hours apart when every college football game takes like 4 hours and 15 minutes to play.
Yeah, right.
Nobody bitches about the length of a college football game. But it is nice to have, you have a basic idea of how long a baseball game is going to take. It's going to take about 2.5 hours now. Whereas it could have been 2.5 or it could have been 4. And it didn't cut out anything that anybody really misses. You know, I mean, I really miss all the scratching. Please, could we bring scratching back? That's what I want to see. And then the pitching injury thing. It's so hard to equate that just to the pitch, not just the pitch clock, but to figure out how much of it is the pitch clock or how much of it is just teams basically treating pitchers like they're pitchers are just fungible assets. Right. Just throw as hard as you can, as long as you can. When your arm falls off, we'll get you surgery, and then maybe you'll come back.
I have a suggestion for the players union that they turn the pension thing into like 5 years for pitchers instead of 10.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's, I hadn't thought that out. I just thought of it now. But
speaking of Bob Nightingale, it's going to double the amount of tweets he has to send because he has to congratulate every player when they get to 10 years.
I sort of expect like all his tweets to have like balloons go off like on a cell phone for a birthday.
Yeah.
When
it's
you've reached your pension.
The local version of that is there's one of the Cubs prospect writers who, during the draft, will congratulate the area scouts, area scout every time a player is picked.
Right.
So I'm sure that guy is like, oh, look at this tweet. That makes it all worth it. Right. Thank God.
In lieu of cash.
I was just about to blow my brains out in this Super 8. In Missoula, but now I'm hanging in there. Actually, I feel bad for him because the Cubs are just firing all their scouts. The reasoning for it, given at the Cub convention, because they were asked Carter. I love that Carter Hawkins actually answers questions like he's doing anything. They said, well, why did you get rid of all those scouts? He's like, well, he said, all the minor league parks now, they have all these cameras in them, and we have pitch data and we have swing data and then we have 8 angles. We don't need people. Like, we're getting that information. That's great. Because what were the scouts doing? They were just like, you're just reading the charts. You don't ask their opinion on anything. Because I would think it'd be nice to have like as many viewpoints and data points as possible. Not just,
especially some more human ones rather than just
and especially
data or...
Especially since the Cubs have fallen behind the Dodgers and the Rays. And the big reason for that is the Dodgers and Rays just go all in on both things. They want as much data and they want as many scouts as they possibly can get. And they'll use that.
You and I talked about, saving money on free agents. These teams that complain about having to complain or whatever you call it, about having to pay scouts, how much money could it be?
No.
For these billionaires.
It's nothing. They don't make any.
I mean, forget about like loyalty or whatever.
Yeah. Well, they don't make any money, and they gotta. It's probably they spend half their time filling out their expense reports to try to get paid back for the. I had pizza at Casey's again the other day. Got to get my $3.99 back for that.
Or for that Super 8.
You've given them a terrible job, and they do it. They all work hard, and some of them are better at than others because they're people, and some people are better at jobs than others. To me, that the answer to that question shouldn't have been, if you don't think you're getting good enough data from the scouts, get different scouts. Don't not have scouts.
No scouts.
Right. Well, the guys we had were worthless, so we fired them out. Well, why didn't you hire anybody? We don't know who to hire. We hired these guys. They were dumb.
Do you know any scouts?
Yeah.
We went to ask the guys that we fired.
Carter's like,
know anybody?
Carter's like, we wasted a bunch of time. I went to a scout meeting. They were all like 12 years old, and they were learning how to put up a tent. What does that have to do with evaluating pop times? Those are Cub Scouts. Carter.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We're the Cubs.
Cub Scouts.
Hey, there was one thing. Can I backtrack for one thing?
Of course.
You mentioned we talked about the pitch clock and how we like that the games are shorter. There's one, I think we've talked about this before. There's one thing about it that bothers me, and that's I've had to, when I have a game on and I'm not like watching the whole thing and I go away, take a bathroom break or whatever, the amount of time is different. And it's like, oh, that's right, the pitch clock's in. I can't like check in on a game that's 2 hours in anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not in the fourth inning.
Yeah.
It's like in the eighth inning. So I've missed the whole game because of the pitch clock. So it's like, be careful what you wish for because you get it. And so I'm still having trouble adjusting to that for my casual baseball watches, that the games are too fast. In my brain, it's always a 3.5 hour game. So.
That's right. Miss a little, miss a lot. In spring training this year, they are going to experiment. I love a good experiment. With the automated ball and strike system, but the appeal one, right? Where pitches are called like normal, but a batter can like back out and appeal. I think that was a ball. I don't think it was a strike, or a pitcher can do it. And then we all get to look at the big screen, and it's like watching tennis, and you get to see the Hawkeye, and everybody cheers. To me, that to me is the most promising of the systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of fired up to see it. And I don't know why. I mean, they must not be going to do it at Toilet Repair Park where the Cubs play, because they play the fewest number of games with that
it's
automated.
Like 7, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really small number. And then there's a couple of teams that almost every game they play. So there must be, in the Cacti League, there must only be a park or two that don't have them, because the Cubs are at a disadvantage. Anyway, what do we think about that? The minor leaguers who've used it tend to like it. Like, they think it's kind of
the feedback has been good. It is. This is one of those things, and maybe it's just because I'm getting old, but I need to experience it. I need to watch it more to have a more informed opinion. It's still like hypothetical in my head, mostly, like how it works and how effective it is. And, I haven't. So yeah, I'm interested in watching, but I haven't watched a lot of minor league games. So I don't, like, my brain doesn't know how it works in practice. So I'm waiting on that before I form an opinion anymore.
I think it would be great if this had come in when the Cubs when Wrigley was the only park without a Jumbotron.
Yeah.
And so it would still happen, but there would be nothing to look at.
Right.
And the crowd would just be staring at the ump.
Well, there would be. They have the TVs though, right? In some of the seats.
That's right. If you were under the overhang,
right,
and you had those crappy little 13-inch Trinitrons hanging off the thing. Bunch of people huddled around one. I think I got the line. I don't know.
Oh, McEnroe's going to go apeshit.
But, that system is designed basically to take the egregious stuff out. Like oh God, that missed by a foot. Let's look at that and let's see.
Yeah, and it's like, well, some games there's lots of egregious stuff, and some games it's really close. So here's one thing that I don't quite. It seems to me that the electronic strike zone doesn't necessarily account for the height of a batter?
That's a good question. So I was reading a thing where they said that every player in spring training will have to get measured specifically for this.
Uh-huh.
But what it didn't explain is, do they have to get in their stance?
Right.
Because it's not just the height of the batter. It's how, if
posture.
Yeah. I mean, if you stand straight up, your strike zone is bigger than a guy who crouches.
Right.
But if you're just, I don't think it didn't sound like they were going to do that. They were just going to try to get like an exact height for every batter, and they would adjust based on that. That to me is where the art comes in, not the science. It's where do you draw the strike zone?
Right. And why? Why did you draw it there? And is it fair-ish? I know, though, like, I don't know if it's backed up with stats. It seems like it is. But, like, Aaron Judge is so tall that he gets jobbed a lot on the pitches at the knees and below.
Oh, that was all the years we watched Chris Bryant.
Sure.
Nobody got more bullshit low strikes called on him than Chris Bryant. Mm-hmm. Because he, 6'11", or whatever he was. 6'5", but
although now the hunched over back a little less.
And I wonder if they'll put the if they could somehow put the Japanese bias, like Seiya gets screwed on more pitches thrown than anybody. So like, okay, Seiya, this is what your strike zone should be, but this is the one we're going to use. We're going to make this bigger. It's going to come in.
You're the one who wanted to come to the United States.
That's right. This is the tax you have to pay to come over. We're going to make your strike zone bigger.
America first, if you get me.
And like the thing we see on TV, when they draw the little box for the TV broadcast, they typically draw that strike zone just above the waist. It's just above the waist to the knees. And the one that always amused me was how little he's a little guy, but the Nick Madrigal strike zone from the waist to the knees was like the size of a soda can, trying to throw it through there.
How does he not walk more?
No, he never walked at all. It's like, gee, they're trying to walk. The rules are designed for you to walk, and you won't do it. So that's the other thing, right? You have to decide with that, okay, how close to the actual rule book strike zone are we going to enforce? Right. Because that would determine where you draw the knees seem to be the agreed bottom of the strike zone. But the top is this kind of this amorphous, I think, does the rule book says like the midpoint of the letters, the top of the letters, which is, that varies on, some uniforms don't have letters. I don't know. Some have a big round C.
Right.
But yeah, I think you're right. The armpits would be a better gauge of that. But that'll be interesting too, because they have to make a decision. All right, which strikes, what version of our supposed strike zone are we going to enforce? Because this isn't just this is no longer up to interpretation. This is an actual, right. There's an actual box to hit. And then there's the idea that if this really gets implemented ever for real, that it will change the evaluation of catchers.
Right.
Because framing would be less important.
Right.
Although with an appeal system, it's still important, right? Because you can't stop the game to appeal everything.
Right. You only get so many opportunities.
Yeah. My theory was, if they were ever going to go to the completely automated one, then with nobody on base, I would just pull my catcher out and have him play in the infield and just let the pitcher throw at the umpire. I don't know that they probably wouldn't let me do that, but I would try that at least once.
There's a funny video. I think it's Ken Kaiser, but it was you mentioned like pulling the catcher, and that's like what happened. A pitch was thrown. Ken Kaiser was hit by it and thought the catcher missed it on purpose. And I don't remember who it was. This is Ken Kaiser, so it wasn't like AJ. It was somebody in the late 90s, I think. And he got so pissed that he rolled the ball back to the mound here. So that would be funny if they if you took your idea and pulled the catcher and just said the umpire. Maybe they bring back the balloon protector so they can dodge. But then how can you judge?
Well, they could draw the strike zone on the chest protector.
Yeah, right.
And then put some kind of Yeah, you could chalk up the ball, and you could tell from the dot it left on the protector whether it was a strike or not. Think all the money you'd save. You don't even need the electronics. There, I just call Rob. I fixed it.
They used to, at some point, I don't know if it was like the first games or the ball strike umpire was behind the pitcher. Maybe where he should be. I don't know if we could. Is that even possible? Is it necessary? I don't know. Is it necessary to have more than a home plate? I guess it would be for plays. I don't know. And I'm enough of a traditionalist. I was wondering this too, sort of on this note. Is it really that important to get the strike zone absolutely? We've had baseball for 100. We've been doing it like this for 150 years. Is it absolutely necessary to do all this stuff for the strike zone, or should we just do the best we can with the people out there? And I don't know.
I mean, the thing that exacerbated it is the fact that every broadcast now draws a strike zone, and so fans get pissed because. But I forget who it was. Somebody in TV production was talking about how those are just like they're
freelancing.
Yeah, and it depends on how it looks to you at home. Depends on the angle of the center field camera, and they don't necessarily they're not going around measuring every player and getting this. They got some guy in the truck moving the strike zone to where he thinks the strike zone is for that batter.
Right.
They do it ahead of time for as many guys as they can. And so we treat it like it's completely exact, and it's not. It's just it was initially meant to be like, hey, that was pretty close. And now we're like, but they bring it on themselves. They'll go to the enhanced one that'll literally like show the ball in a replay, show the ball, whether it clipped the zone or not. And they act like this is completely exact. And so fans get pissed. And so the reaction was, well, is there a way to actually do this? And that's why it's come around. I mean, in the 80s, they would have never worried about this shit. You just umpire blew a pitch and, you could kind of tell whether or not he blew it, and you moved on.
I think it should almost be something that is just so egregious. And those happen once in a while that you can appeal. But if it's like kind of close, which most mistakes are kind of close, let's just. Well,
and I don't know how the process works. Like, is it just like how many appeals do you get? And you're going to have, if the batter or pitcher can do it himself, I mean, would a manager get pissed if they're just wasting their challenges early? Like, don't appeal that. Like, too late. I already did. I don't know how. I don't know how that actually works.
Do you get 3 a game? Does that even make sense?
I mean,
I should know the answer to this question, Andy. I don't know.
It would. A limit like that only makes sense to me if you get 3 wrong ones.
It's 6. Well, the Pioneer League, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
What league did they use? The AA did it all year last year, right?
Yeah.
I think. And then it wasn't last 2 years ago. They used the weird baseball
types of measurements for AAA and the Low State Florida League, Low A Florida State League.
Okay. But to me, a limit only works if you lose them when you're wrong. So if an umpire's having a shit day and you keep appealing and it's like, no, that should have been a strike. No, that should have been, if you're right, I feel like you should keep them.
Right. Like on a replay, like a football challenge.
Or maybe you only get X amount after maybe you start with 6, but after you get 3 from the 7th inning on or whatever, just so, because it'll also be strategic, right? A pitcher wants a break. He'll appeal a pitch. He doesn't give a shit if it's really gets turned into a strike because he wants the 30 seconds or whatever it's going to take for them to cue it up and do it and the crowd to go nuts, and then he gets back on the mound. So some of that will happen. Kind of like in football when a coach will a borderline play will happen that he might replay, but he wants a timeout and he's like, well, I might as well just challenge it.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to call a timeout right now anyway. Sometimes you burn them just because. So I could see that. I would hope that no team puts Matt Eberflus in charge of their appeals because he's in need of a job. Although it sounds like he might go back to Dallas to be the defensive coordinator. So
yeah, I read that.
They could form talk about a coaching staff with 0 personality. Brian Schottenheimer, Matt Eberflus, Cowboys. Congratulations.
Why would you think that Marty Schottenheimer's son could call plays? I know that's not fair, and that's probably neither here nor there. But like Marty was known for defense, or at least like just running the ball. Okay. So as of 2022, you got 3 challenges per game. This was in the Florida State League.
Okay, 3 a game.
AAA. 3 a game. I mean, that's not a lot.
Now, is that 3 on both sides of the of the ball?
With successful challenges retained for future use in the game.
Okay. That to me makes more sense. So
yes.
If a small number is fine if you get to keep them if you're right. Because that guards against if you lose them just when you use them and you get like Laz Diaz out there pumping strikes when they're all balls and you're right 3 times and now you're out and then you're out of challenges and he keeps fucking it up. You want to be able to get him. Baseball should bring Angel Hernandez back to be in charge of this.
Kind of the Matt Eberflus of umpires.
Do you think we'll get rules analysts now in the booth?
Sterator?
It'll be Angel. Angel, what do you think? I think he's out. Well, that was ball 2. Oh, he's still out.
I told you. I said what I said.
Well, he could. I mean, CBS uses Gene for basketball too because he was a Big Ten basketball.
Right.
Somebody should brand him. He can just be like he can be the rules analyst for every sport. It doesn't matter whether he's ever officiated it or not. Gene Steratore gets to slide into your booth and explain the rules to you. That'll be good.
Andy, what would you think of an Angel, Steve McMichael buddy picture?
Yeah. They better hurry up and make it. It would be
I mean, yeah.
So spring training starts early for 2 teams, Cubs and Dodgers. Got to get there because they're off to Japan to do the weird thing where you go to spring training, then you go play some games that count, then you come back and you have more spring training. Hey, we're already 0-2. Congratulations. That's great. Now we're going to play another week of Cactus League games, and then you can start over again. Praz, on our other baseball podcast, pointed out something to me that I had not realized. Do you know who the first... Well, you're going to figure this out, but the Cubs are going to be the first visiting team to go to West Sacramento to play the A's.
Oh.
Fun. For most of the Cubs, that'll, playing in a minor league park is probably where they should be, except they'll be playing a game that actually counts.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this whole process has been messed up with the A's, of course. So I'll be interested to see like how ready the stadium is and exactly how awful it's going to be.
Well, they already had to turn it back to grass.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was. I think it was all turf. I don't think it was one of the weird turf infield, grass outfield things. But they had to turn it back to grass. The Giants AAA team still playing there.
Yeah.
So they're sharing it.
That's workable.
It'd be great if they're like, okay, well, guys, we got to hurry up. There's the AAA Giants have a rain out to make up later tonight, so we got to get we're going to call this after 7 innings so they can get their game in. That'll be fun. I also they gave some of the Rays a tour of the Yankees minor league facility in Tampa, and they were also impressed as how much nicer it is. Like, oh, this is sweet. Like, their Class A team plays here? Yeah, they do. That's much nicer than your major league ballpark. Congratulations. That's great. It kind of sounds like maybe the Rays stadium deal is falling apart on them.
It generally has been. The hurricane really made it fall apart.
It did, yeah.
That's kind of been... I remember when they announced that they had a deal. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Because I sort of followed that along, and it just didn't... It seemed like there was any will whatsoever to give them something. And I was surprised that in the first place that happened. So now I guess I'm not, that it is... Certainly somebody's trying to undo it. if it's not falling apart, in fact.
So now they might be on the move. You know, it'd be a good place for them. Oakland. Oakland could use a team. The whole Vegas thing to me also doesn't seem like, until that thing, I don't even want a shovel in the ground. I need to see like the roof go on before I believe that thing's ever going to happen.
It doesn't it seems, I would put it at 50-50 and no better.
I mean, to me, the smartest thing would be tear down the Coliseum while the A's are in Sacramento and build them a park and take the team away from John Fisher and just bring them back to Oakland.
I mean, I hope that's what happens because, I don't want Oakland to be without a team in particular. Maybe I shouldn't care, but I still think maybe that could happen.
Well, I feel like they got sabotaged.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't that long ago when they were good and they were selling that place out.
Right.
There's an actual fan base there, but that park sucks and it was falling apart. And once Fisher got a hold of the team, he wanted it to fall apart because it was an excuse to move. And then they got shit. And then they weren't trying to win. And then it's like, well, nobody goes to the games. It's like, yeah, because the park is a dump that sewage flows through the aisles. And
you mentioned Rob Manfred's legacy.
Right.
Here's a lot of it.
Oh, he's claiming, that was the whole deal, right? He wants to get certainty for the A's and the Rays so then they can expand. They can go to Nashville and Portland or Charlotte or wherever they're going to go. Well, this is all falling apart again. They're not going to have that because what they don't want is the A's or the Rays moving to one of those cities because they want the expansion fees. They don't want them to just move. So I don't know, but it's just, we've got two teams playing in minor league parks this year, but everything's great. But I believe the Cubs report on the 9th, which is less than 2 weeks, and the Dodgers must too. So baseball's coming. You're going to get to watch at least guys playing catch in shorts, which is always fun.
That is really awkward to have the season start and then stop for a couple weeks.
Yeah, and for no good reason, right? Like, couldn't they? I mean, the flights from Japan. Couldn't the Cubs and Dodgers go over, play those 2 games, fly back, take 2 days off, and then start their seasons?
Yeah, I know that. I think that's why that's not good enough, and I think that's why they don't do it that way, and they feel like they're going to be at a competitive disadvantage. I always feel like there's too much crap going on the last week of spring training anyway. Yeah. Like you're breaking up camp, you're going to your AAA team or whatever for exhibition games. There's off days or there's no off days or there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that last week where really, if you took it easy and played every other day, then you could get ready for the season. And I think that is the answer. Having these games go a little closer to opening day. And then
I feel like have them both. Well, they do. That I believe the Dodgers probably open at home and the Cubs are opening in Sacramento, West Sacramento. You fly to Japan, you play your 2 games, you fly back to the coast, you rest up for a couple of days, try to get, shake as much of the jet lag as you can, and then you start playing. I don't know why you need to come back for a week before. It's just
when they go over weird. There, are they all first class seats? And is it like can you sleep? And
Cubs are flying Spirit, I think. There's a layover on Midway Island.
I was going to say Guam, but
Guam, yeah. Bora Bora, is that halfway? Actually, if I was a Cub and we landed on Bora Bora, I would get off and I would not go. I would just stay there. Yeah, but your point is right. It's first class travel. The teams employ people who will the NFL does it now. You go to England and you come right back and you're just playing the next. Well, I guess they try to give them a week off, but they don't worry about you adjusting to the time change going over there. They just expect you to play a football game.
Right.
And I don't know why baseball is any different. It doesn't really matter, but it just makes it weird. It doesn't feel like the season really starts in those 2 games in Japan.
No, I guess it's one of those things that doesn't really matter, but you like to have. I mean, it is messing with baseball tradition and the clock in your head that the season started. I think it does matter. I think it's important enough that they should. I don't know. There's so many off days because of bad weather. The first actual week of the season, they could even do it like that, where they want to go over there and sort of make it the only game in town. So I guess there's that. Although aren't the games like at 3 a.m. here?
Yep.
So like that isn't that important for the U.S. market. It's important for Japan to have them, but I mean I think they could start the season in Japan and have opening day and give them off days and still make it all work. Yes. So I don't know.
Let's see.
Certainly the whole middle of the March thing is dumb.
The games will both start at 5:10 a.m. Central Time. And that feels to me like the Cubs were there in 2000. I remember getting up at the butt crack of dawn to watch Kyle Farnsworth make a start in Game 2. The Cubs won that one against the Mets.
Came out in a sumo outfit, tackled somebody.
Yeah, so it's 3:10 a.m. for the. See, that's payback for the Dodgers for all their spending. They have to. Their fans have to get up 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the first 2. Of course,
we'll show them.
They won't get up till 4 o'clock because the Dodger fans, they always show up late. Then they'll go back to bed in the 7th inning. All right. Well, we'll have plenty of chance to talk about those before they start. The games are what days? March 18th and 19th.
18th. Yeah.
Good Lord. So that's like 2 weeks. That's even worse. When is the opener? End of March, right? So 10 days.
29th or 30th?
That's weird. I don't get it. That is. Yeah, you look at the Cubs schedule, there's all these like spring training games. And then there's just 2 blue games right in the middle of the schedule because those count. Cubs open on the 27th against the Diamondbacks. Then they go to Sacramento for the second series. So that's the A's home opener. So the Braves are coming in for the last 2 spring training games. So a little Cactus League, Grapefruit League crossover.
Oh,
exciting!
Crossover.
See, I don't like that. To me, that messes with the sanctity of the Grapefruit League season.
Mm-hmm. I thought the same thing. I mean, it's kind of stupid, but I thought the same thing.
The Cubs are going.
It messes with your head. It's like the Braves are playing a spring training game in Arizona. That's wrong. They're in Florida. So, yeah.
The Cubs are playing the. What are the Japanese Tigers? They're starts with an H.
Hanshin?
Yeah. Play them on the 14th of March, and they play the Yoramuri Giants on the 16th. So they're going to be over there for 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just Tokyo Giants?
Yeah.
1,
no,
2, 3.
It's Yomiuri, but it is in Tokyo.
In Tokyo. So they're going to be over there for like a week. Total.
I'm glad we missed Trevor Bauer. That could have been.
Yeah.
That could have been his chance to pitch against major leaguers again. Stuck with the Mexicans.
I just feel bad for him. Oh boy, what a terrible victim. All right. Well, I hope you feel better.
Me too.
Thank you for gutting this out. Playing hurt. Good job.
You got it, Coach.
All right. Well, thanks,
Andy.
Many of us have herpes. You can't quote that. I'm not going to comment on anything.
No, I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.
It's fitting. It's got to be done with one of the best games of all time. Just unbelievable. I mean, got to congratulate the Dolan family.
Sean, my podcast co-host Andy, you were his favorite player growing up.
Oh, thank you so much. Awesome.